Everybody perceives the world through our own subjective frame, through our own subjective worldview, through our own subjective model of the world. And this subjective model of the world is powered by our memories, our experiences, our desires, and a surrounding filter of confirmation bias. If you're talking to me and you're telling me a whole bunch of ideas, I'm going to filter these ideas so the only ideas that get through are the ones that seem familiar to what's already in my brain. And I'll say something like, see, that's what I'm talking about. If you have an idea, this is a common dynamic that's misunderstood by nearly everybody, which means if you can understand this dynamic, you can become incredibly persuasive. The dynamic is that somebody is talking, two people are talking, and one person has an idea, and they share this idea with the other person. And the other person says, wow, that's a great idea. The misunderstanding is that the idea doesn't really get recognized as an objectively valuable idea. That's the interpretation from inside. We share an idea. We like our own idea. We misunderstand our own subjective idea as being objectively valuable. And the other person says, hey, that's a great idea. So we perceive that as them looking at the objective value within that idea and recognizing the objective value within that idea and saying, hey, that's a great idea. That validates our suspicion that we have objectively valuable ideas. But that's not what's happening. What's happening is we share an idea that we mistakenly believe is objectively valuable, but it's really subjectively valuable because it's our idea, and this idea just happens to fit what already exists in their mind. This idea reminds them of an idea that already exists in their mind. That's why it seems valuable to them. And this might be subjective, this might be subconscious rather. They maybe subconsciously recognize this idea. If they consciously recognize this idea as an idea that is familiar inside their brain, then they'll say, that's what I'm talking about. But if they only subconsciously recognize an outside idea as being very, very structurally similar to an idea that already exists inside their mind, they will say, wow, that's a great idea because it resonates on a subconscious level. This is the exact same thing that happens when you create body language rapport. Because when you create body language rapport, you're mirroring and matching everything you can about the other person, and they pick up on this subconsciously. They don't notice this subconsciously, they only notice this subconsciously, and it feels familiar, and it reminds them of themselves. And because we like everything about ourselves, it feels good to be in rapport with someone. It feels familiar. It feels comfortable. It feels safe. So when you create body language rapport, you are creating a deep feeling of comfort with the person you're talking to. This structure, this dynamic is why sales and seduction and persuasion is usually such a low probability endeavor, a low probability, sometimes confrontational feeling numbers game. Because when you persuade people, we persuade them with the ideas that exist in our head. And we tell them these ideas that exist in our head, and we believe these ideas are objectively valuable. But if they don't resonate with the other person, if the other person doesn't recognize these ideas as being familiar to ideas that already exist inside their head, they won't seem objectively valuable. There'll be a mismatch. Which is why when you are capable of selling something to somebody, when you are capable of seducing someone, it just so happens that your ideas are a match for what's inside their head. And so when you're trying to persuade people of your ideas, or when most people try to use the outside-in approach to persuade other people based on the ideas in your head, what you're really doing is just sorting through everybody and finding people that happen to have a match, an overlapping enough match between the ideas in your head and the ideas in their head. There's this fantastic principle in psychology called priming. Priming is when you kind of set the brain up, you kind of pre-configure the brain to be more conducive to a message you later give to the brain. For example, they gave people a warm cup of liquid, and they told the people to walk into another room and talk to the person in the room and then come back. Then they filled out a questionnaire about the personality of the person in this room. And they did this under 2 different scenarios with a whole bunch of different people so they could randomize all the variables. In the first scenario, people would walk in with a warm cup of liquid, talk to the person, come back, fill out a questionnaire about the personality of the person. In the other scenario, they walked into the room with a cup of cold liquid, a cup of ice water. And they would do the same thing. They would talk to the person. They would come back and fill out a personality questionnaire about the person in the room. But when they walked into the room, when they were primed by holding a warm cup of liquid, they were predisposed to interpret the other person as having a warm personality. This warm cup of liquid primed their mind-body system to interpret the world through this primed state. Similarly, when they walked into the room with a cold cup of liquid, it primed their mind-body system to interpret the world through this primed state. And when they walked in there with a cold cup of liquid, they interpreted the person's personality as being cold and distant and aloof. So simply by carrying something warm or carrying something cold, that pre-frames how we perceive other people. In a similar experiment, they gave people a very, very heavy metal clipboard upon which was a resume. And they talked to somebody and they had to judge this person's skills. On the other hand, they gave people a very, very lightweight clipboard, like barely metal or barely wood, like cardboard. Same thing, a resume on the clipboard. Then they talked to the person and they had to make an assessment of their skills. When they were holding the heavy clipboard before they saw the person, they were primed to believe the other person had very heavy, very deep, very robust skills. But when they held a very, very light clipboard, a very flimsy clipboard, they had a much different assessment of the other person's skills. So again, they were primed before they talked to somebody. And how they interpreted that person was a reflection of their primed state. Well, the best way to prime somebody, the best way to persuade somebody, the best way to pre-frame somebody's mental state is to ask them what's already inside their head. This is the golden rule of copywriting. If you want to enter into a conversation with someone, enter into the conversation that's already going on in their head. This will completely remove any possibility of idea mismatch. Because if you lead with your curiosity, if you lead with your conversational skills that are pointed at finding out what's inside the other person's brain, that will have the magnificent effect of priming them maximally in a way that will pre-frame them to be maximally open to whatever your message is, so long as you take your ideas and put them in terms of their ideas. This way, you'll know ahead of time what's inside their head, and you will maximize the possibility of your ideas matching the ideas in their head and give them the experience of, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Imagine being able to sell a product to someone, and you describe the product in perfect terms of what's already inside their head and giving them that experience, that, hey, that's what I'm talking about experience. That will make them want to buy the product. Or imagine if you wanted to seduce somebody, and you first talked about the ideas in their head, and you presented your ideas, what you wanted them to do in terms of what's already in there. And that would give them the, hey, that's what I'm talking about idea. Imagine asking for somebody's phone number and them responding by saying, that's what I'm talking about. Imagine asking somebody to come home with you and them responding by saying, that's what I'm talking about. Imagine trying to sell something to somebody and them responding by saying, that's what I'm talking about, and being eagerly to buy whatever you're selling. Any recent successful conversations that you've had are already proof that you know how to do this on a deep level, and how you can continuously improve your ability, repeatedly improve your ability to lead with your curiosity and absolutely transform how you speak to people. Anybody that has desires in their head are perfect targets for you to persuade and seduce using this model. Does it really matter if you have to turn off your ego just for a little bit? Does it really matter if you have to turn off your desire, your instinctive, your ancient desire to tell them first what's inside your head? How many ways do you think you'll be able to persuade people using this idea expansion first model? How many different ways do you think you'll be able to seduce and persuade and sell things to people with this idea expansion first model? Those who have used this technique to make a ton of money in sales by first expanding the ideas in their head will tell you that no other communication model is as elegant as this one. No other communication model is as effective as this one. And once you let go of your need to tell people what's inside your head and simply become curious about what's inside their head, you can prime them like crazy. Those that use this method are far more elegant communicators. Luckily, it's a very, very easy thing to learn. It's a very, very elegant thing to learn. All you have to do is stop desiring to put ideas in their head. You don't need to learn hypnosis. You don't need to learn hypnotic language patterns. You don't need to learn how to tell hypnotic stories. All you need to do is ask what's inside their head. But here's the kicker. If you do want to learn hypnotic storytelling, if you want to learn how to use linguistic presuppositions conversationally to persuade their brain, doing so after you've brought out the ideas in their head will make them much, much more effective. It will make you much, much more persuasive than you already are. It will make you much more of a charismatic speaker than you already are. It will make you much more of an elegant speaker than you already are. Once you truly begin to experience how effective this is to build up their ideas first, you'll realize that this isn't just about persuasion. This isn't just about seduction. This isn't just about how to make twice as much money and half the time if you do happen to have a sales job. This is about understanding the structure of human nature. This is about understanding the structure of human thought. This is about understanding the structure in a way much more robust than you already do about the nature of human thinking processes. It is your desire to understand human nature that will make you a fantastic practitioner of this method. It is your pre-existing understanding of the human condition that will make you particularly persuasive, maybe more persuasive than most people will ever believe. Because most people are stuck inside their ego. Most people are stuck inside the model that I need to tell people first what to do. I need to explain my ideas first. But because you are different, because you understand this in a way that most people don't, you can use this model in very, very elegant and persuasive ways. And the second thing you'll notice when you start to use this model is that you can become incredibly persuasive unconsciously without even thinking about it, without even trying. And that will allow you to transform your life in ways that most people can't imagine. Listen to people talk first. Expand their ideas first. Build them up first. Prime their brains with the ideas that already exist in their mind, and then use that information to layer on top hypnotic stories, to layer on top hypnotic language patterns, to layer on top linguistic presuppositions, and you can become easily, effectively, quickly, automatically, subconsciously the most elegant and charismatic communicator other people have ever met. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.